To write a history of colonial America used to be easier because the human cast and the geographic stage were both considered so much smaller. Until the 1960s, most American historians assumed that the colonists meant English-speaking men confined to the Atlantic seaboard. Women were there as passive and inconsequential helpmates. Indians were wild and primitive peoples beyond the pale, unchanging objects of colonists' fears and aggressions. African slaves appeared as unfortunate aberrations in a fundamentally upbeat story of Englishmen becoming freer and more prosperous by colonizing an open land. The other colonies of rival empires, Dutch, French, and Spanish, were a hazy backdrop of hostility, backward threats to the English America that alone spawned the American Revolution and the United States. And no colonial historian bothered with the 18th century Russian colonization of Alaska or the English probes into Hawaii, although both places later became absorbed into the United States. By long convention, American history began in the East in the English colonies and spread slowly westward, reaching only the Appalachian Mountains by the end of the colonial period. According to this view, the seeds of the United States first appeared with the English colonists in 1607 at Jamestown in Virginia, followed in 1620 by the Pilgrims at Plymouth in New England. Earlier Spanish and contemporary French settlements were fundamentally irrelevant except as enemies, as foreign challenges that brought out the best in the English as they made themselves into Americans. What we now call the West did not become part of American history until the United States invaded it during the early 19th century. Alaska and Hawaii made no appearance in national history until the end of that century. That narrow colonial cast and stage made for the fundamentally happy story of American exceptionalism, the making of a new people in a new land. By immigrating to the colonies, white men escaped from the rigid customs, social hierarchies, and constrained resources of Europe into an abundant land of challenge and opportunity. That story persists in our national culture and popular history because it offers an appealing simplification that contains important but partial truths. Many English colonists did find more land, greater prosperity, and higher status than they could have achieved in the mother country. After about 1640, the great majority of free colonists were better fed, clothed, and housed than their common contemporaries in England, where half the people lived in destitution. And English colonial societies were truncated, lacking the gentry and aristocracy of the mother country, creating a political vacuum at the top to be filled by prosperous merchants and planters.